Zuri stepped off the bus into the restless heartbeat of New York City, a place where dreams rose as tall as the skyline and secrets hid beneath every echo of sirens and footsteps. She clutched her small suitcase, its handle worn from years of borrowed hope, and looked up at the towering buildings that swallowed the sky. She had traveled far, from a quiet village in West Africa, where stories still rode the wind like ancestral whispers. Back home, the stars felt nearer, warmer, alive somehow. But here, they were buried behind metal and light. She hadn't come chasing glamour or fame. She came chasing a chance to build something real, to send money back home, to rewrite the future her mother never got to have. Her Aunt Miriam, the only family she had in the States, had arranged a room for her in a small apartment in Harlem. The city was loud, unforgiving, impatient. But somehow Zuri felt watched, not in a threatening way, more like the air was aware of her. As she walked, the wind shifted, curling gently around her shoulders like invisible hands guiding her forward. For a second, she paused. The wind wasn't cold. It carried warmth, familiar warmth, the kind that felt like memory. She swallowed hard. Not here, she told herself. Not again. She had spent years trying to silence whatever it was that followed her. Dreams she didn't understand, visions that came like lightning flashes behind her eyes, the quiet hum in her chest that pulsed when danger or destiny was near. Back home, the elders said she was chosen, but to Zuri, it always felt more like a storm waiting to break. She had not come to America to awaken old things. She came to escape them. She made her way through the subway tunnels, overwhelmed by the noise, the blur of faces, all moving fast, eyes down, stories buried. Nobody looked at her, but she still felt seen. At the turnstile, she paused again. The same strange warmth pressed against her spine. Not danger, recognition. Like someone, or something, had been waiting for her. She shook the feeling off and boarded the train. The doors shut with a heavy thud, and the car rattled forward. Opposite her sat an older woman, wrinkled hands, sharp eyes, dressed in layers of mismatched scarves. A strange metallic pendant shaped like a crescent moon hung from her neck. The woman stared, not rudely, knowingly. Zuri looked away, uncomfortable. A moment later, the woman spoke, voice low but steady. "You've finally arrived." Zuri's heart stumbled in her chest. She lifted her eyes slowly. "Excuse me?" The woman didn't blink. "New York has been waiting for you." Zuri forced a nervous laugh. "I think you have me confused with someone else." The woman's lips curled into the faintest hint of a smile. "No," she whispered. "I don't." A sudden tremor crawled across Zuri's skin, the same electric shiver she used to feel back home whenever something invisible brushed against the edge of her soul. She didn't know how or why, but she knew. This woman wasn't a coincidence, and New York was not just a city, it was a summons. The subway screeched into the next station, and the old woman stood without breaking eye contact. She stepped closer, holding one of the poles for balance as the train rocked. Zuri tried to remain calm, gripping her suitcase tighter. "Do I know you?" she asked carefully. The woman tilted her head, studying her face with ancient familiarity. "No, but your bloodline does." Zuri's pulse quickened. The woman lowered her voice. "Your arrival wasn't a choice. It was an answer." Zuri blinked, confused. An answer to what? But before the woman could reply, the train doors hissed open. She reached into her scarf, pulled out a small folded cloth pouch, and pressed it into Zuri's hand. "When the city begins to speak to you, open it." Then she stepped out, swallowed by the crowd. Zuri sat frozen as the doors shut again. She looked down. The pouch was hand-woven, West African stitching, not decorative stitching but symbolic, sacred, protective, something her grandmother would have recognized instantly. Her throat tightened. "No," she whispered to herself, gripping the pouch. She had promised herself, she would not bring the old world into this one. She shoved it deep into her bag and pressed her back against the train seat, inhaling shakily. She arrived at her aunt's small apartment after sunset. The hallway smelled of spices and old heating pipes. When her aunt opened the door, Zuri was greeted with warm arms and tears of relief. "My child! You made it!" Aunt Miriam exclaimed, cupping her cheeks. "Let me see you! Look how much you've grown!" The nostalgia almost softened the ache of fear still sitting beneath her ribs. Dinner was a short conversation, about work, the neighborhood, unused furniture she could borrow. But Zuri only half listened. Her thoughts kept orbiting back to the woman on the train. Who was she? How did she know? And what did she mean by your bloodline? The city hummed outside their window. Cars, sirens, footsteps, somewhere a street musician's distant trumpet drifting through the night. Yet beneath all that, something else pulsed. Subtle, but alive. As if New York itself had a heartbeat, and it was getting louder. That night, Zuri lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The streetlights bled pale orange through the thin curtain. Sleep refused to come. Just as her eyes began to drift shut, a sudden chill swept through the room. Not wind, not cold. Presence. The sound was faint at first, like a soft whisper pressed against the inside of her skull. A language she didn't speak but somehow understood. She sat up slowly. Her pulse hammered. The whisper grew louder. No voice, no lips, just knowing. The pouch. Her hand moved to her bag before she even realized. She pulled it out. It felt warm now, pulsing like a small heartbeat trapped in cloth. Her breath caught. Then, shh! The lamp beside her flickered violently, lights dimming, then surging brighter. The walls seemed to tremble for a second, shadows bending unnaturally. Zuri gasped, and then she heard it.
A whisper not from inside her head, but right behind her ear. "It has begun." She spun around. No one. But the room wasn't empty. Something unseen had arrived with her. Something ancient. Something that wasn't done waiting. Zuri didn't sleep the rest of the night. When morning finally came, she forced herself to believe it was stress, jet lag, imagination. But deep down, she knew better. The whisper hadn't been around her. It had been for her. By noon, she began her first day at a local community center, the small administrative job her aunt had arranged. It was quiet work, mostly paperwork and helping visitors check in. Nothing complicated. Exactly what she wanted. A normal life. But normal was already slipping away. That afternoon, as she was organizing files, a little girl, maybe 7 years old, wandered into the office. She had big curious eyes and 2 puffball braids tied with pink ribbons. She stared at Zuri for a long moment, unblinking. "Can I help you?" Zuri asked gently. The girl took a step closer. Her voice was soft, almost distant. "You shine." Zuri froze. The girl tilted her head, studying her with the same haunting awareness as the old woman on the train. "Most people are gray," she continued quietly. "But you're gold." Zuri's breath caught. Before she could respond, the girl's mother rushed in. "Sweetheart. I told you not to run off." She took her daughter's hand. "I'm so sorry," she said quickly to Zuri. Zuri shook her head, forcing a polite smile. "It's fine. She's sweet." They turned to leave, but the girl looked over her shoulder, locking eyes with Zuri one last time. "They're watching you," she whispered. And then she was gone. That night, the whispers came again. This time louder, clearer, like invisible fingers brushing her shoulder, tugging her towards something ancient, inevitable. Her heart thudded painfully as she unwrapped the pouch at last. Inside was a carved wooden talisman, dark and polished, etched with markings she had seen only once before, hanging from her grandmother's neck on the night the village elders took her aside and said, "She is chosen, but she is not yet ready." She had been 8 years old. She never forgot the look in their eyes. Reverence, and fear. Now, holding the talisman again after so many years, her hand trembled. She didn't understand it, not fully, but her body did. Some part of her blood remembered what her mind tried to forget. The air in the room thickened. The shadows on the wall shifted again, not randomly this time, but purposefully, curling upward the way smoke rises, except there was no smoke. The whispering grew layered, not one voice, but many. Not words. A summons. Like dozens of ancestors calling across centuries through the marrow of her bones. She clutched the talisman to her chest, and the room went silent. Not peaceful silent. Expectant silent. And then. A sharp knock at the door. Zuri jumped. Who would come this late? Cautiously, she approached. Before opening it, she pressed her ear to the wood. Nothing. No footsteps. No breathing. No human presence. But something was there. Something waiting. She opened the door. And found no person. Only a folded slip of paper on the floor. Her name written across it. Not Zuri. But her birth name. Zuri Adifolian. The name elders used in ritual. Her blood ran cold. She unfolded the paper with shaking hands. There was only one line inside. You cannot outrun what you are. Her lungs tightened. Her pulse roared. Someone in this city knew her truth. Before she ever spoke a word of it. And whoever they were getting closer. The note sat on her nightstand like a threat, or a warning. The handwriting didn't match her aunt's or anyone she knew in Chicago. Sharp strokes. Confident. Old-fashioned, almost ceremonial. By morning, a sick heaviness settled in her chest, the kind of feeling you get when the world is shifting beneath your feet, and you're the last one to notice. At work, she tried to bury herself in tasks, but her hands shook every time she reached for a pen. She kept replaying the little girl's words. You shine. They're watching you. Who were they? At lunch, she slipped outside for air and sat on a low stone wall near the sidewalk. Cars passed, sirens wailed in the distance, Chicago's usual soundtrack. Ordinary, but she could no longer feel ordinary inside it. She sensed eyes on her again. Not paranoia, instinct. She scanned the street. Nothing. But the feeling grew stronger, like someone standing just beyond the corner of her vision. Watching. Waiting. She stood to leave. And nearly collided with a man. Tall. Dressed in a dark coat that looked too expensive for the neighborhood. His skin was deep bronze brown, his features sharp, elegant, but his presence was what struck her. He didn't just stand there, he commanded space without trying. His eyes, a piercing gray, studied her with unsettling calm. Zuri's body reacted before her mind did, adrenaline, readiness, a warning. She stepped back. Sorry, she muttered. But he didn't move. Didn't step aside. Didn't break eye contact. Instead. You opened it. The words froze her in place. He shouldn't know that. He couldn't know that. Zuri swallowed. I don't know what you're talking about. A faint smile, not warm, not mocking, something in between. Like he knew she was lying, and also knew she had every reason to. The talisman, he said softly. Your grandmother's binding was never meant to last forever. Her heart pounded. Who are you? She whispered. He glanced around, not nervously, but like a predator checking for witnesses, then stepped just close enough that she could feel the temperature shift. Someone trying to keep you alive long enough to understand what you are. Zuri's breath hitched. This wasn't metaphor. He meant it literally. She took a step back. I don't know you. Don't follow me. For the first time, a flicker of emotion passed through his expression, not offense, disappointment. You don't have the luxury of pretending anymore. She turned to walk away. He didn't stop her. But his final words before she reached the door made her blood go cold. They've already marked you. And once the veiled order marks someone, they don't stop until your gift is theirs. Zuri spun around. But he was gone. No footsteps. No trace. Like he'd melted into the air itself. She went back inside shaking. Because now there were two truths she could no longer escape. She was not imagining this. Whatever was coming for her, already knew where she was. Zuri told herself she wouldn't think about him, the stranger with the gray eyes, the one who knew too much, but his words stayed hooked in her mind like barbed wire. They've already marked you. The sentence replayed over and over, looping until it became a rhythm under her skin. By the time her shift ended, she felt restless, jumpy, her nerves stretched thin. She lingered inside the lobby, reluctant to walk out into the street. The sun was already dipping, washing the city in cold orange light. She took a breath and forced herself outside. Nothing unusual at first, cars honking, people crossing, voices, laughter, wind funneling between tall buildings. Just Chicago. Just life. But halfway down the block, she felt it, that same pressure behind her, like someone's gaze heavy on the back of her neck. She didn't turn around. Not yet. She shifted her reflection in a shop window instead. There. A silhouette. Across the street. Not moving, just standing. Facing her. No features, no face she could make out, just the unmistakable sense of being studied, not casually but deliberately, like prey. Her throat tightened. She started walking faster. So did the shadow. Not running. Not hiding. Just, mirroring her pace. She cut left onto a busier street, trying to lose the feeling, but she didn't lose it. It followed, steady and patient, like something that had all the time in the world. At the crosswalk, she let a crowd form around her, hoping she'd imagined it, but when she glanced sideways, she saw another reflection. Different figure. Closer. Tall. Still. Facing her. Watching. Panic prickled beneath her skin. Not loud panic, the quiet, suffocating kind that makes the world feel a little too small. Her instincts screamed. Don't go home. If she led them there, then home wouldn't be safe anymore. She turned toward a convenience store and stepped inside. The bell over the door chirped as she entered. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. She pretended to browse the shelves, chips, canned drinks, gum, anything to avoid the windows. The clerk barely glanced at her. But she wasn't here to buy something. She was here to breathe. To control the shaking in her hands. To decide if she was going to run, or confront whatever was tailing her. After a minute, she made herself look. Slowly, carefully, toward the window. The man was still there. Standing directly outside now. Not approaching. Not retreating. Just waiting. Zuri's pulse hammered in her ears. She backed away from the glass, pretending to look at a fridge door handle, but her reflection showed something she hadn't noticed before. He wasn't alone. On the opposite corner. Another figure. Also watching her. Different build, different posture, but the same stillness. The same unnatural patience. Two of them. Two watchers. Not random. Not coincidence. A pattern. A surveillance. She felt her knees weaken. She swallowed hard. What do they want from me? Suddenly the clerk behind the counter said something that didn't register at first. You okay? His voice snapped her back. Zuri opened her mouth but nothing came out. He squinted at her, suspicious at first, then something in her face must have shifted, because his expression softened. He nodded toward the window. Is somebody bothering you? Zuri hesitated. Then looked again. Both figures were gone. Not walked away. Just gone. Like a tape cut from a film. No footstep sound. No turning. No trace. As if they had never been there. The clerk frowned when he saw her expression. You sure you're all right? Zuri forced a shaky breath. Yeah. Just, tired. She stepped back outside, slowly, scanning every corner, every alley, every doorway. Nothing. But her body knew better. They hadn't left. Not gone. Just hidden. And the city suddenly felt like a maze built to trap her. That night, she locked every window. Every door. Double-checked them twice. But she still felt it. That same gaze. Not from outside anymore. But from somewhere closer. Somewhere she couldn't see. Somewhere just beyond the edges of light. And for the first time in her life, Zuri realized she wasn't merely being watched. She was being studied. The next morning, Zuri dressed restlessly, her nerves raw from the night before. The city looked the same, but felt different, like someone had pulled a thin veil over reality and she was the only one who could sense the shift. Her aunt left early for work, humming in the kitchen before rushing out, unaware that something hunted her niece in plain sight. Before stepping outside, Zuri paused at the door. Her reflection in the hallway mirror stared back, steady eyes, straight posture, but under the surface she could see it. Fear changing into readiness. Not courage. Not yet. But the beginning of it. At the train station, she scanned faces automatically. A mother with a stroller. A man with headphones. A teen scrolling his phone. Office workers. Tourists. None of them wrong. None of them the watchers. Maybe she would finally get one normal day. The train arrived with a rush of cold underground air. She boarded and sat near the window, trying to relax. 2 stops passed. Then 3. She almost let her shoulders drop. Until a shape reflected in the dark window glass seated down across from her. Not right beside. Not diagonally. Directly across. The same posture. The same stillness. Her breath caught. She turned her head slowly, not in panic, but the way prey knows it has been found. A man in a charcoal coat sat facing her. Dark skin, sharp cheekbones, expression unreadable, but this one wasn't the stranger from before. Different man. Same atmosphere. Same watching. But this time she noticed something new, his right hand rested on his knee. Wearing a silver ring carved with a pattern she recognized instantly. Her grandmother's talisman. Had the same symbol. Her stomach dropped. He didn't speak. Didn't blink. The train rattled through another tunnel, lights flickering above them, and for 1/2 second, the world darkened. That evening, Zuri walked home with her pulse still drumming in her ears. Not just from fear now, but from a terrible new awareness. They weren't just watching her. They were waiting for her to become something. But become what? The city wind cut through her coat as she reached the courtyard of her aunt's building. The sun was already fading behind tall brick shadows, leaving the world tinged in dusky blue. She felt it again the moment she stepped through the gate. Pressure. Not heavy this time, more like expectation. As though the air itself was holding its breath. Inside, her aunt was on a call, laughing in the kitchen. Zuri murmured a greeting and slipped past her bedroom door, the talisman already burning like a coal in her pocket. She sat on the bed, pulled it out and stared at it. The carved lines. The symbol matching the ring. The weight of inheritance. Her pulse synced with it, slow, deep, rhythmic. You cannot outrun what you are. The paper note's words echoed through her skull. She closed her eyes. Just for a second. And in the darkness behind them, she felt something. Not a voice this time. Not the whispers. Something inside answering the world outside. Soft at first. Then clearer. Not words. But a sensation. A pull. Like something ancient inside her had always been listening, waiting, and now it had finally risen to the surface. Suddenly. A loud crack echoed outside her window. She jerked upright and rushed to the curtains, pushing them aside. A streetlight across the road had burst, showering sparks before going dead. Every other lamp on the block was still lit. Only that one. The exact angle facing her bedroom window. No wind. No storm. No short circuit. Something had answered her awakening. Like a tuning fork resonating back. Her hand went numb around the talisman. That night, Zuri barely kept herself from tearing the curtains shut and hiding under her blankets like a child. But fear wasn't enough to make her look away. She needed to know. Was it really there, or was she losing her grip on reality? She blinked. The figure didn't vanish. It stood half inside the light, half inside shadow, as if light itself struggled to decide whether to reveal it or conceal it. It wasn't close enough to strike. But it wasn't far enough to ignore. A frozen, coiled presence. Zuri stepped back from the window, heart pounding hard enough she could feel it in her wrists. She fumbled for her phone, not to call anyone, she had no one she could explain this to, but because her instinct said record it, prove it's real. She raised the camera. But the second her screen turned toward the street, the shape blinked out of existence. Not ran. Not hid. Erased. Like a shadow deleted from the world. Zuri's breath caught in her throat. The room suddenly felt colder. Then. A voice behind her. You saw it. She spun around in terror. The stranger from before, gray-eyed, quiet, immovable, stood inside her bedroom. He didn't break in. He didn't open a door. He was just there, as if the space had chosen to let him in. Zuri stumbled back. How did you? The Veiled Order doesn't send humans first, he said calmly. They send a shade. A scout. Shade. The word felt wrong in her mouth before she even spoke it. You mean that wasn't? No. Not anymore, he finished. This time, there was something in his voice, not emotion exactly, but a gravity, like the weight of someone who had seen this play out before. Zuri's hands trembled. Why are they watching me? What do they want? He studied her in silence for a moment before he answered. You're not the one they want. They want the power waking inside you. Her stomach twisted. You're saying I'm, what? Some kind of, battery? A faint shift of his jaw. Almost a grim smile. No. You're a key. The word hit differently. A key implies a door. And doors always lead somewhere. Zuri shook her head. I didn't ask for this. And yet it came for you, he replied softly. That is how bloodline gifts work. Bloodline. That word landed too close to home. My grandmother, she whispered. She knew. He nodded once. She more than knew. She protected you from it for as long as possible. Zuri felt her throat tighten. And you? Why are you here? For the first time, he exhaled, not tired, but like he had been waiting for her to finally ask that. Because unlike them, I don't want to claim you. He stepped closer, not threatening, but inevitable. I want to teach you before they get to you. Outside, another streetlight flickered. Zuri swallowed hard. You said I'm a key, she murmured. A key to what? He held her gaze, gray eyes reflecting the dim lamp glow. And then he said the words that would change her fate. Not a key to something. A key to someone. Her pulse stilled. You are the only one who can unlock them. A pause. And the Order will tear the world apart to make sure you do. Zuri stared at the man, trying to understand his words. A key to someone. Her heartbeat slowed. Yourself. The room felt smaller. He didn't step toward her. Didn't crowd her. He simply waited, letting the truth settle the way thunder settles after lightning, delayed, heavier than the strike itself. Zuri shook her head. That doesn't make sense. How can I be the key to? Because part of you isn't awake yet, he said softly. A part your grandmother sealed. Her breath caught. The seal. Not protection. Containment. She remembered the old rituals, incense smoke, chanting she hadn't understood, being made to stand barefoot in a bowl of river stones while elders painted her wrists with ash. She'd been told it was a blessing. Now she wasn't sure. Sealed, why? She whispered. He studied her face before answering. Because when your true self rises, you won't just wield power. You will become it. Her stomach twisted. You're saying there's another version of me, trapped? Not trapped, he corrected gently. Dormant. Contained. Waiting for the lock to break. Zuri ran a hand through her hair. So what happens when it wakes? His eyes darkened slightly, not in fear, but reverence. Then the world will no longer be able to pretend you are ordinary. The air thinned in her lungs. She paced, mind racing. If this is true, if something is sealed inside me, then why haven't I felt it before now? Because the binding held, he replied. Until you crossed the ocean. Zuri froze. What does Chicago have to do with it? He looked toward the window, as if sensing the watchers still lingering in unseen corners. Not Chicago, he said quietly. Distance. Lineage seals weaken when blood crosses far from sacred ground. You are untethered now, and power without tether always wakes faster. Her pulse hammered. Africa had contained her gift. America unleashed it. A bitter irony, she had crossed the ocean to find peace, not to awaken something ancient and dangerous inside herself. She exhaled shakily. So the Order, they're waiting for this other part of me to wake. No, he said. They're waiting to steal it the moment it does. The words landed like a blow. Not to kill her. To claim her. To break her open like a door. Zuri swallowed. Why me? There must be others. His silence answered before he did. There weren't. Your bloodline produced many who could carry power, he said softly. But only one who could embody it. Only one. Her. Not chosen by ceremony. But by nature. Then what am I, really, she whispered. His gaze didn't waver. A convergence. The last vessel. The waking storm. The one thing the veiled Order cannot create for themselves. A pause. So they hunted in you. Zuri's breath trembled. The watchers weren't guarding her. They were measuring her. Waiting for the moment the sleeping self surfaced. So they could own her before she owned herself. She wasn't prey. She was property in waiting. Then teach me, she said suddenly, the words out before she could second-guess them. He looked at her fully now, as if evaluating not her fear, but her readiness to stand in it. Teaching you will make you a threat. Zuri straightened her spine. Not teaching me makes me a target. Silence. Then, finally, a slow nod. Then your awakening begins tonight. That night, Zuri walked away from the lights of the house and wandered toward the quiet lake on the edge of the property. Everything around her was still, too still, like the world was holding its breath. She didn't know why she came there, only that something inside her felt pulled, as if the place itself was calling her. She knelt near the water and looked down, expecting to see her own tired face staring back. But the reflection that stared up at her wasn't the version of herself she knew. It looked older, wiser, and heartbreakingly sad, like someone who had lived a lifetime of grief that no one else could see. Zuri blinked, but the reflection didn't blink with her. It moved first, lifting its head before she did, as though it wasn't copying her at all, but remembering her. A chill crawled up her spine. For a moment she couldn't breathe. She wasn't looking at a reflection. She was looking at another her, buried deep and waiting to be acknowledged. And instead of anger or fear in those mirrored eyes, there was sorrow, the deep, aching sorrow of someone who had loved, lost, and carried far too much alone. Then, without her speaking a word, a voice rose, not out loud, but inside her, clear as a memory that had been sealed away. You were never running from destiny, you were running back to it. The wind stirred the surface of the lake, but the reflection did not distort. It stayed there, still and solemn, as if bound to her by a truth she had not yet fully unlocked. Zuri backed away slowly, her heartbeat loud in her ears. She didn't know who that other self truly was, a queen, a warrior, a forgotten soul, but she knew now that this was not coincidence. It was not a dream. It was a return. A continuation of a life she had once lived before, now rising back through the cracks of the world to find her again. The night didn't feel empty anymore. It felt watched, guided, as if old eyes were opening above her, waiting for her to finally remember what she once was. A quiet strength settled in her chest. In the days after the strange night by the lake, Zuri tried to continue her life as if nothing had changed, but something inside her felt heavier with every sunrise. She no longer laughed the same, no longer looked at the world the same. It was as though a part of her already knew she didn't truly belong here anymore. The world around her grew quieter, and so did she. One evening, she returned to the water where everything began. The wind was still, the sky dim, and the lake looked like a dark mirror waiting patiently. When she looked down into it, she didn't see her present self at all, only the sorrowful reflection of the woman she once had been long before this lifetime. She understood then, she had not been given a second chance at life, only a brief delay from fate. There was no struggle. No sound. Just a soft acceptance as her reflection drew her back into the destiny she was never meant to escape. By morning, she was found sitting peacefully at the water's edge, her body still, her eyes empty, gone without pain, gone without noise. Not lost, only returned. Her story ended where it truly began.